It was an hour till dawn. I stood on the docks, holding the gold locket in my hand. To Eugenia, my everything. I chucked it into the bay and watched it sink. Earlier that evening, the buzzer to my office rang. It was almost closing time, and there'd been nothing in the door but ghosts and empty air. Just me, some smokes, and a bottle of spirits. The cheap, round hanging clock on the wall pointed to 4:47 with two hands. Damn, almost made it. I buzzed them in. After putting my bottle away and calling her to come in front of me stood a beautiful young woman with dark amber hair and green eyes, bright as emeralds. "How can I help you, ma'am?" I said, closing my desk drawer containing my cigarettes and liquor. I looked this number up in the directory, and it pointed me here. "This is Nocturnal City Investigations? You're a private investigation agency?" Typically, the only reason people came to me at Knox City is because they either can't afford to use one of the more reputable agencies, or they don't want to bring attention to themselves. So I figured the girl must have been hard up, or desperate. A pretty girl like that probably didn't have a shortage of money. By the way she was dressed, she could have at least afforded an AI detective agency. A lot of people nowadays preferred AIs to PIs. Why trust someone you don't know with your dirty laundry, when a machine could clean it up for you with a neat receipt, detailing all the relevant information, complete with your total charge at the bottom of the page. Jobs in my line of work usually weren't so neat, pleasant, or simple as all that. That's the issue with having a living person on the job. We aren't emotionless machines. Only problem with using an AI agency, the metadata isn't private. And if you're doing anything against company policy, or illegal, most of the time you can expect a call from the police, your boss, or worst of all, your spouse. Or you might just never stop getting advertisements for male growth enhancement supplements delivered to your front door. Everything has its cost. "Yes, please take a seat." I gestured to a chair on the other side of the desk. "I'm fine, thanks. I probably shouldn't be here, but I didn't want to talk over the holo." She pulled out a handkerchief, midnight blue, anagrammed with the gold initials HM and a gold border. It was clearly highly expensive and in very good condition, looking by its age. "You see, my brother, Philip, he's missing." We talked over HoloLink, but he seemed scared, like something was wrong. He got a new job in the city, and things have been really stressful at work. He hasn't been sleeping or eating, but he won't talk to me about it. Then 3 days ago, he stopped answering, and he hasn't been home since. I've been terribly worried. Today I got this by parcel mail. She handed me the handkerchief. It belonged to our father. Philip always kept it on him. "Why not go to the police? Please, miss, take a seat." The younger woman obliged. "Well, you see, I'm suspicious that what Philip's been doing is not entirely legal, and She trailed off. "You don't want to incriminate your brother." It was believable enough, but I suspected there was more to this story than meets the eye going on beneath the surface. "Yes, exactly." She seemed relieved that I understood her predicament. I pulled out an open pack of smokes from my coat. "Do you mind, Miss Rebecca?" And no, I don't mind. I found clients often more willing to introduce themselves if you asked during some routine courtesy. Most are suspicious it could be used against them, or affect them if anything turns up in the course of the investigation that makes them look bad, or that could get them in legal hot water. The rest don't really have a good reason, other than general distrust or fear that the case may somehow backfire on them, or God forbid if they were blackmailed. Yes, those in my line of work aren't too highly trusted. In these days of automation and artificial investigations, much less a half-lizard PI, but much has been said of the curiosity of cats, and the many potential means of which to properly remove one's coat. Nesh and Merlot, at your service. I gestured in case she wanted a Hyperion. She took it and puffed greedily as I lit it for her with my finger's cyberware lighter implant and watched those dark green eyes for clues as to what this was really about. I lit my own cigarette and leaned back in my chair, tasting the Scythia. Its sweet, pungent spice subtly burning my insides, like the sweet kiss of death herself, if she ever would stop by and pay me a visit. Do you know where he worked? All I have is a number, but when I call it, there's no answer. Do you have it with you? She pulled out a yellow flashcard with some numbers hastily written down in a man's handwriting. Do you mind if I hold on to these? I gestured to the handkerchief on the desk, with the card in my hand. Sure, she said. Where can I reach you if I turn anything up? I'm staying at the Grand Marquis in South Sierra, room 2402. All right, miss. I'll reach you there if I find anything. Is there anything else you think I should know before investigating this case? Be careful. My brother isn't a coward, but he was afraid. And he wouldn't be without very good reason. Goodbye, Detective Merlot. And like that, the auburn fire and the life and fresh air that had come in with her, and those deep green eyes, walked out of my office. I pulled the bottle out of my bottom drawer again and uncorked it, pouring myself a glass from the bottom of the drawer next to the cigarettes. What do we have so far? A 24-year-old Auburn sunset, her missing brother, shady employment, and a couple clues. 1. A monogrammed handkerchief, presumably once from the bespoke business suit belonging to the late Philip Sr. 1 HM. And 2. That a number that isn't a hollow link. I took a drink from the crystal glass feet on my desk. Contrary to popular conceptions of those in my field, the top of my desk was clear, apart from a desk lamp, the bottle, drinking glass, an ashtray, and my name tag were the only things on the relatively large desk. A man of few priorities knows his few needs. Detective Nesh and Merlot, the double-sided name tag near the edge of the desk, glinted back at me. What is this picture not telling me? She didn't want to go to the cops, but she didn't say why she didn't want to go somewhere else either. Maybe I'm just getting sloppy. Nocturnal City Investigations. That's what this is. Detective agency for the damned, the lost, the cowardly. Run by a cold-blooded reptile. Raking the city streets, neon underbelly for gold, and usually finding a lot more besides. Often more than I bargained for. I had a hunch, so I called up Preet Kolpak, a local net runner, to check out this mystery number and delegate some of the data mining so I could focus on the legwork, where my work really shines. Go for Kolpak. Preet, how's my favorite gnome runner? What do you want, lounge lizard? I'm busy. Preet was one of the best net runners in Trinities. We went back. Too far back. I've got a number that's not on the hollow. I want to know what it is. Can you look into it for me? I'll consider it. How much they paying you? Nothing yet. Oh, heart of gold. Don't bet on it. Preet finally relented. All right, if anything turns up, I'll link you back. All right, Preet. Kolpak out. Preet and me had something of an understanding. Neither of us was from the central systems, natively. Xena races were not rare to see in the city, but we were far from locals, even if we had lived in Trinities for decades. Most of the gnomes in the city belonged to the Sigs, mystics who followed their own religion from the old world and brought it to Sierra. For some reason, they made some of the best net runners. The gnomes were notoriously good tinkers, and craftsmen too, but in TD the money was in techies and cybernauts, so they applied their know-how there. From what I could tell, they must have been good at what they did. Lizards like me needed all the friends we could get. There were still some with old ideas from the old ways that don't lead to a future for nobody. Even in Sierra, metropolitan capital, one of the most modern cyber planets, there were old families, and old allegiances. I try to leave all mine in the past. I figured I'd get out and hit the streets while Preet was doing his thing. I didn't feel like going home. Something about that girl's tone, her demeanor. She was scared, all right, but more than she let on. I closed up the shop and went to the Square Ruby. I had a feeling someone down there would be able to give me some more on this Philip and his sister. I don't know what it was, but something smelled off, and I should know. I could smell a drop of sugar in a seawater fish tank. There was nothing sweet about this. I got to the Ruby and showed my ID to the bouncer. He was unhappy to let me in. Promise I won't cause trouble. Better not, Scales. Boy, where do they find the wits on these ones? I went to the bar and ordered a drink. Scythia Sunset, dry. I paid via index print, before casually smudging it away with my coat sleeve. I had enough problems already without some mug stealing my identity. Tell me something. Do you recognize this? Long years of experience had taught me a name was rarely a good idea to ask for. If it even was real. Much better to have an identifying object, a character flaw, or personal trait. People often remembered behaviors or habits over names and personal details. Felt more comfortable complaining about them at least. Who's asking? I knew she didn't mean anything by it. Why would a reptile like me be asking about some guy's handkerchief? I'm investigating a disappearance. The guy who owned this, his sister's trying to find him. She's worried. Real worried. You understand? I'm just looking for anyone who might have seen him or heard where he might have been going. And this is the only place in the area. Someone who could afford this would wear it. And you, being the bartender, might have served him if he'd happened to come in during the night of your shift. She gave me a long, bored look. Okay, look. All I know is there was a guy in here about 3 or 4 nights ago. He was making a fool of himself in front of a bunch of stecks. He was falling over himself. Security had to remove him. Did you see who we left with? Same guys as far as I know. Real freaks, too. Not from around here. She shivered. I liked the idea of those freaks gave her the goosebumps. Look, she continued. All I know is that guy had this in his coat pocket. She gestured to the handkerchief. He was ordering drinks most of the night back to back, really throwing them back too. I only remembered because I had to cut him off. Did he say anything? Most of it didn't make sense. He kept saying, I can't do it anymore. Do what? I have no idea. Look, I've got to go. It's about to get busy. But ask that guy. He was here that night. Had to drag that guy out, and those creeps followed him. She gestured toward the doorman who had let me in. Oh goody, a real lizard lover. I sat in the corner and drank my drink before I had to deal with the steroid cyborg again. Stecks, this is just getting better and better. The Stecks were one of the most violent gangs in Trinities, known for ripping out cyberware and reselling it on the black market, or slotting it in for themselves. They were into drugs, kidnapping, grand larceny, and racketeering, and our white-collar trust fund there was chumming it up with them. Most Stecks didn't even look human, with numerous all-spectrum optic implants in place of organic eyes, and usually had metal faceplates and audio implants where their organic faces used to be. Plenty of them went insane, and they were all on bad juice and bad juju. There were rumors of some of them soul-ripping rival gang leaders, storing their digital human freight as AI, just to fuck with. It was sickening. These guys were no joke, and our buddy Phil seemed to be in deep with them. Too deep to swim, and he was apparently in here drinking like a fish if the bartender was to be believed. How did the handkerchief reach the girl after Philip left the Ruby with the Stecks? I decided to see if the bouncer had any answers. What do you want, cold blood? This guy's a real smartass. The bouncer remained obstinate. I didn't see anything. I don't need to talk to you. You ain't a cop. He had a buzz cut, coated face tattoo, probably more cyberware than a microwave oven under all that synth skin and reinforced muscle fibers, and a huge meaty jaw. I'm investigating a missing persons case. The owner of this was seen leaving here with some bad actors. You wouldn't have heard anything they had to say as they were leaving, would you? His sister's real worried. Just then, walked in a group of people. A dozen or more showed up laughing and giggling. A real crowd. I checked my holo watch. Happy hour. The bouncer had a look on his face like he wanted to unplug his power source. He must have been used to this. He gave me a quick glance. All right, look, Webtoes. All I heard is they were taking the guy to the factory. You didn't hear it from me. Just beat it so I could do my job, cold blood. Just then, some kid in a blue petticoat bumped me on my way out as I was pulling out my pack of Hyperions. Sorry, Scales. The red-headed boy caught up with his friends. Where do they find the wits on these ones? I decided to take a walk beneath the bridge. The smoke from my lit cigarette billowed up and reached high beneath the heel steel-like girders on the underside of the Sierra Bridge in downtown Trinities. The street light shone through, and I looked out over the bay, the lights of the city skyline. Huge mega buildings with whole communities inside. More than half a dozen street gangs out there somewhere, among the sirens and neon. Regular people too, in their homes, just trying to make it in one of the biggest central cities in the galaxy. My HoloLink implant rang as I walked along the water. Knox City. Ness, it's Kolbach. What'd you find, Preet? Turns out that number you gave me was an old IP address for the comp system at an abandoned building in the warehouse district. It's an old cyberware processing plant. It was a factory that went out of business when the bubble burst on the smaller companies back in the day. The megacorps took over the district decades back. It's been abandoned for years. There's my factory. Thanks, Preet. If anything comes out of it, I'll let you know. Kolbach out. I smoked my Scythia, tasted the sickly sweet red ambrosia. My species had a certain